Nanko and Dustin here. What's going on? Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. We're heading into week 6. Before we get into all our tips and advice, quick shout out to Brian from Michigan, a 2-time winner already.
Impressive.
Very impressive. Congratulations. You'll get another one of these sweet shirts coming your way. But we're 5 weeks into the season. You're 0-5. You're 1-4. Brent, what do you do?
It's panic time! It is panic time! You gotta worry about it right now. There's no thinking about the future. It is panic time. And now, obviously, that was a little dramatic, but that's how you gotta be thinking internally. You gotta win each week from here on out, or at least look at it. What is the best lineup I can get for this week and not think about the future? Because if you're 1-4, you need to go. He's the math major out of the two, which is a sad thing.
You pretty much got to finish 6-2. You know, right around 7-6 is normally, you know, the cutoff for the playoffs. 6-7 with a good point total. But like we're saying, you got to win now. So you got to take guys that are on a bye, maybe, that you could have some trade value. You know, guys like Phillip Rivers, if you can trade him for a Tony Romo for this week and get a nice upside quarterback, that might be a good move. Or trade guys like Mendenhall or Steven Jackson, underperforming running backs, that you can get a guy who has a really good matchup this week. And, you know, teams up at the top of the rankings will be more than willing to give you a guy to take a gamble on your stud that's underperforming.
Hurt guys are another prime example. If you own Andre Johnson and you're doing terrible, get rid of him. I, like sitting at the top like I am in so many of my leagues, would love to grab an Andre Johnson, but you can't afford to wait him out. And they just signed Derek Mason, so I don't know. It might be lingering a little longer than they're leading on right now.
And it's just one of those deals, you know, you can't just be a sitting duck. You gotta make some moves, shake things up, see what happens.
Panic time.
It's panic time. For all those teams, 1-4, 5-0, it is, or 0-5, it is panic time. Let's get into those forum questions. We had some audio problems with our first takes here. Stuck with just me for this part of the show. Our first one comes from Kid X 1995. Running back question: Sproles at Tampa Bay or Javid Best versus San Francisco? 57% are going Sproles right now. I think that's the way to go. He's been really consistent all year. He's got a decent matchup against Tampa Bay. And Brent would be very mad at for me saying this, but I think Best could definitely have a tough time running the ball against San Francisco. It's a tough matchup. I think if you have decent options, you try to bench Best if you can this week. The next one comes from Ed3535, tight end question: Jason Witten at New England or Rob Gronkowski versus Dallas? Obviously, they're playing each other this week. Could be a really high-scoring game, though. 70% of people on the homepage right now are going with Witten, and I'm going to have to agree. You know, with Aaron Hernandez coming back for New England, one more mouth to feed, I do think Gronkowski could have another solid game, but Witten's the safer play here. You know he's going to get his. It's going to be a big game for pretty much everyone in that game, I feel. There's going to be a lot of yards, but I think Witten's the safer out of the two. And the last one we're going to do is a wide receiver question from Robot Food. Greg Little at Oakland or Darius Hayward-Bay versus Cleveland. Two other guys that are playing each other. 57% of the people right now are saying Greg Little, and I agree with that as well. You know, Little is a guy we were high on coming into the year. You know, he's just got announced that he's going to get a bigger role in that offense. He's going to be starting for him now. Oakland has a terrible defense. They've been giving up a ton of yards from scrimmage this year. I think Greg Little's a decent sleeper pick this week, as you'll see later on in the show. Stick him in your lineup over Hayward-Bay. And it's time for them studs, duds, and sleepers. We'll start with my picks. My stud, Mr. Tom Brady, going up against Dallas. That should be a very high-scoring game. They've kind of been leaning towards the run the last few weeks, but I think this week they released Tom Brady, throw a ton this week. Both tight ends, Wes Welker, get involved. Brady has a big week. My dud, Mr. Javid Best. Coming off,
bastard! How dare you?
Coming off one of it was his best game ever.
Absolutely, it was. First time rush for over 100 yards this year.
Yeah.
Maybe in his career, actually.
His best game of his career, but going up against the San Francisco D, I think he's gonna have a hard time. I think he goes back to his normal self of what he did the first few weeks of the season. But
normal self? How dare you? Week 4 last year, he did pretty good before the turf toe. By the way.
All right, just. If you have better options, you might want to keep him on your bench this week. And my sleeper, Greg Little, we talked about him before. He's going up against Oakland. He's starting now for Cleveland. This is a very talented young receiver, and Oakland gives up the second most yards from scrimmage. I think Cleveland at least moves the ball a little bit against Oakland this week.
All right, my stud is also in that Pats-Cowboys game, but it's the other quarterback. That's Tony Romo. Coming off the bye, I actually really like him. And side note, I'm not sure about this, but I guarantee you it's going to be the highest over-under in Vegas. It's something that we always like to look at. The Patriots, dead last against the pass. Tony Romo throws the ball, gets Miles Austin back. I like him as my stud. My dud is Anquan Bolden. A lot of issues with him. First of all, ever since he came over, he hasn't been that great for the Ravens. But Jonathan Joseph's on him. They're playing the Texans. Joseph's a stud corner, the best free agent corner, not that guy out in Philly acquisition this year. Jonathan Joseph, sick corner. And then my sleeper is Ryan Terrain. I saw on Dustin's waiver wire show he's only owned 50% of leagues, which is absolutely insane. Here's the deal. Philadelphia is terrible against the run, ranked 30th. You run the ball to keep Vic and that offense off the field. I think Terrain gets the start, gets a lot of carries, and does a lot of damage.
All right, let's get into Mike's picks. His stud, Calvin Johnson, going up against that San Francisco D, but they're a lot weaker against the pass than the run. So look for Stafford and Johnson to still have a solid week. His dud, he really went out on a limb on this one. Mike Thomas going up against Pittsburgh. Thomas does have value in PPR leagues, but if you were thinking about starting Thomas, probably not a good idea to begin with because they're going against the Steelers. But, deploy him as you normally will next week. And his sleeper, Michael Crabtree, with Josh Morgan, Braylon Edwards both banged up. They're going up against an explosive Lions team. They might be having to pass a lot to keep up. He likes Crabtree as a sleeper this week.
Deeper leagues, Morgan, done for the year, by the way.
Done for the year. There you go. So that's it for our Week 6 show. As always, get into those forums. If you got any questions, we're going to be in there as much as we can. I'm Dustin. This is Nameco. Good luck this week.
I missed again.